We are now going to transition from assessment to instruction. All lessons have learning targets as their backbone, and if we have three-dimensional standards, the question is, do all learning targets need to be three-dimensional as well? And the quick answer is no. If we are asking students to engage in three dimensions that are not yet consolidated, their working memory is going to be overloaded. They're not going to be able to consolidate any of the three because they are grappling with too much new. Therefore, there is room for one-dimensional learning targets in NGSS, and knowing that we are building up to three-dimensional learning experiences that mirror both the standards and the assessments that they will be doing. I took the NGS Standard we looked at previously about analyzing and interpreting traits to provide evidence of familial relationships. I broke down that standard even more so we could have more achievable targets in each dimension. So let's look at it one at a time. In the blue, what practices do the students need to do, and what are the subsection or sub-skills that students need to be able to do to be successful on the horse family assessment. Then looking in the middle column in orange is what they need to know. So there needs to be lessons that are going to build on the knowledge around inherited traits. And then lastly, in the column to the right in green, we've broken down what it means to think in patterns. So looking for similarities and differences and what is repeating. Then learning targets were developed using these sub-skills in combination. Again, the hoped for learning target is three-dimensional so that students are ready to do a three-dimensional assessment, yet you can see that there are some that lean more towards exploring the concept, some that are very geared towards understanding more about traits and heredity, and we constantly weave in the practice to allow students that repetition and to be able to be fully confident in their ability to analyze and interpret data well before the assessment. This is a tool I recommend using to determine whether or not your learning targets have more than one dimension and to ensure that you're hitting all dimensions throughout the unit. You can see we have pasted a kindergarten standard up top, and then in each column we have a different dimension. So for example, the disciplinary core idea, the science and engineering practice, and the cross-cutting concept of patterns. Then we insert the learning targets in the column to the left and analyze how many of the dimensions are we targeting in that learning target? Are we building in complexity throughout the unit? And are we sufficiently hitting all of the dimensions prior to the assessment? I highly recommend using this to determine if your unit is sufficiently targeting the different dimensions so that your students are well versed in all the dimensions prior to the assessment. So in summary, to be a three-dimensional teacher using three-dimensional assessments and instruction, you want to be moving towards two-dimensional and three-dimensional learning targets for your lessons. Anything that's one-dimensional about content, we want less of this happening in your units. Then we want to make sure that there's some explicit lessons around the science and engineering practices and the cross-cutting concepts. These are new for both us and our students, and there needs to be some dedicated time to get our students consolidating their understanding around these and to reach mastery of both these practices and the concepts. Lastly, we want to make sure that our instruction and assessments are rooted in phenomena as a context. So for example, the horse family assessment is rooted in the context of a horse family. So students have a purpose behind analyzing and interpreting data. Take a moment to reflect on this table and think about what is it that you are looking to do more of and what is it that you want to make sure you're doing less of.